Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video I am going to be continuing my first looks into the core books of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition. Now I've been reviewing the revised editions of the originals. So a few years after the books were first published, then there was a revised edition, which was primarily, some tweaks, but mostly just editing, revisions, and such. So, so all of the videos that I've shown so far have been based off the revised editions, the black cover books that you're going to see here. Now, just to give you a basic timeline, so second edition, in case you're not familiar, the Player's Handbook was released in 1989. It was still under control of TSR, although AD&D First Edition and Gary Gygax were, pretty much done, moved on, and so second edition came along. So this is the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons without Gary Gygax attached to it. So the Player's Handbook came out in '89, as did the Dungeon Master's Guide. The Monstrous Compendium was a series of books, whether they're soft cover or not. This gives me the indication that they were soft cover, and this is a hardback version of those that came later on. But the Compendium series ran from 89 to 98, and then the Monstrous Manual, which I'm holding here, was originally produced in 93, and then this is the 7th printing of that. This is dated 97, and then the revised second edition Player's Handbook was 1995, and the revised second edition Game Master's Guide, Dungeon Master's Guide, was 1995. So all of these are still pre-Wizards of the Coast. They're all TSR. Thus you see the TSR logo on them, the more updated ones of them as well. So without further ado, let's start taking a look at the Monstrous Manual. And I will try to flip back and forth and show you a couple of comparisons between AD&D First Edition and AD&D Second Edition. At least two examples of them. So let's jump right into that. And let's go to here. And let me just double check to make sure you're seeing the same thing I am. This is always hit or miss sometimes. So, this hardcover Monstrous Manual was created in response to many requests to gather monsters into a single durable volume, which would be convenient to carry with the Dungeon Master's Guide DMG and the Player's Handbook PHB. The Monstrous Manual forms the core of the AD&D Second Edition game. Every monster from the Monstrous Compendium, volumes 1 and 2, are contained within, as well as a few creatures from later volumes. The monsters in this Monstrous Manual have been revised, edited, and updated. Statistics for many of the creatures have been corrected. New information has been added to many of the entries, and many monsters have been reclassified. There are some new beasts as well. In case of conflicting information, Monstrous Manual supersedes all previous published data. All right, so they're basically saying that once this was released, if you're using this, it supersedes all previous data and knowledge and so forth. Certain entries have been greatly condensed from Monstrous Compendium's entries to make this book as complete as possible without increasing its size or price. For instance, there is a full-page description of ravens in the Monstrous Compendium Appendix for Greyhawk campaign setting In this book, ravens are given only a few lines in the bird entry. This provides enough information to use the creatures for the short encounter, and it allows a page to be devoted to another adversary. To find monsters in this book, flip through the pages or look in the index, which contains listings of common names and every other thing. All right, let's start to move on. So the contents. Now, one of the big changes between second edition and first edition, the monster manuals, is that due to the satanic panic, demons and devils have been renamed in this, and I am going to show you at least one example of that. So, so that was another big change that took place in this new edition. So, the introduction describes how to interpret the monster in this book. In addition, there are 3 small appendices in the back of the book. The first deals with making monsters. The second covers monster summoning and includes tables for random determination of summoned creatures to make random encounter charts, for example. And the DM should refer to Chapter 11 of the DMG. The third appendix is concerned with creating NPC parties, other worlds. So, and that was something else that a big difference between AD&D second edition and AD&D first edition was that second edition came with a lot more worlds attached to it. So you have you still have Greyhawk. You could still have used Greyhawk, but now you have the Forgotten Realms, you have Spelljammer, you have Dark Sun, and so on and so forth. So there were a slew of campaign worlds, including Dragonlance and also including Ravenloft becomes a setting rather than just a standalone module or two. So the monsters each describe in full detail with entries that describe their behavior, their combat, their modes, combat modes, I'm sorry, and so on. These are explained in the following text. You have the climate and terrain of monsters. You have the frequency of monsters. And I like the fact that they give you the percent chances for each. So very rare is only a 4% chance of encounter. Rare is an 11% chance. Uncommon, common, and that's pretty much it. Organization is the general social structure the monsters adopt. Solitary includes small family groups. All right, so unique is obviously an individual. One is encountered as only one. Solitary can include smaller groups. Activity cycle is the time of day when the monster is most active. All right, so this is another inclusion, another new aspect in the stat block. So I really like that as well, because it helps you when you're doing like a random encounter as a dungeon master, when you're looking at the actual creature that comes up on the random encounter, and then you see, well, it's outside of his activity cycle. You can either discard that and take something else, or you can come up with a unique explanation as of why this creature is acting outside of its activity cycle, which might be a very interesting little plot twist that you can add to just a very simple random encounter. Its diet, so what it generally eats, intelligence, and this has been done before, so intelligence and the intelligence equivalent of things, they give it the attribute score, so that you can kind of see what does that really represent in comparison to the player characters, right? Treasure refers to the treasure tables in the Monster's Guide, the Dungeon Master's Guide, sorry, and so on. That's pretty easy. Alignment is unchanged, so shows the general behavior of the average monster of that type. Exceptions, though uncommon, may be encountered, right? So we've always had this flexibility in alignment, at least going back to second edition now. So there's always been this, this exception to the rule. And that goes back to the very beginning when Gary obviously said that, you can alter some of these things, not remove alignment altogether, but you can certainly make these exceptions. Number appearing, armor class, movement. So you have fly, swim, burrowing, climbing, and moving across webs. So just a little bit more information being given here, which I like. The hit die, THAC0. So this is something that has been a real issue with second edition being treated with treated as being it's a much more simpler system than people make out to be, and THAC0 is something that they attack, more modern, certain modern gamers or people on the outside of gaming but feel that they're attached to gaming like to attack THAC0 as being something that is ridiculously complicated and just an issue with it. It's really not. It's really a pretty simple system. It's just different than what they might be accustomed to. But there's no real advanced. You're not doing calculus to do, to play advanced Dungeons and Dragons, either first or second edition. The number of attacks, damage, and so far. All of this you're probably very familiar with. They give you size ranges here now, including tiny and gargantuan, which wasn't usually seen in AD&D First Edition. XP value, I like the fact that they put a flat XP value in Second Edition. I'm going to show you that in the stat block as well. Habitat and society, ecology, variations, none of this was in AD&D First Edition. So there's a lot more layering of descriptives for monsters in this as well. Power score of the creature's usual score when using a power that is not automatically successful. I'm not very familiar with that and how that really comes into play. So we'll see. I have only, to be perfectly honest with you, and actually I'm going to switch views here as I discuss this. I have played second edition more than I've run it. The times that I've run it maybe just a couple of times directly from AD&D second edition sources. But most of the time that I've run AD&D second edition, I've run from the retro clone for Gold and Glory. So I am no expert on this. This is why I'm calling this my first look. This is my first deep dives into it. I've played it more than I've run it. I've run it a few times, and as I said, I've run it more so using the retro clone for Gold and Glory. So anything that I come across here, view it as very unscripted and unchained. This is why I'm talking about it in this way. That when I come across these systems that I'm less familiar with, just take it as someone seeing it, much like you might be seeing it for the first time, or certainly not with a level of expertise. So I'm laying that out here right now. There are other channels that spend far more time with AD&D second edition than I have, but I'm looking to make a change in that. I'm looking to add more content on my channel addressing AD&D second edition. As like I said, right behind me, or I may have said earlier, right behind me, you see that whole shelf right there. That is everything AD&D second edition that I have, and I will continue to bring out the books and everything that I do have, and doing first looks and brief overviews of them as well. There may come a time, because I do have a lot of subscribers who ask to see stuff on second edition, and so this is, giving them some subscriber service to them by showing what I have and talking about what I understand of it. And I always welcome people to come in that have more expertise than me, to jump in the comments section and to point out where I might be slightly off. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I'm not blocking or banning anybody for disagreeing with me. So, and if you do want to see a huge series of live plays, I'm going to put a plug out here for Dungeon Musings, who covers a lot of this stuff. He has dozens of live plays for AD&D second edition. So, and I'd love for him to pop in here and leave some comments as well, clear up some things, that I might run amiss on. So without further ado, let's jump right back into it again. So here we're going to get to the creatures, and I wanted to, so I'm going to zoom out of here real fast, and I wanted to go to the first comparison that I'm going to talk about is, so this is devils, right? So Ba'atezu are now devils. And this is all of the devils. All right. So in AD&D first edition, not including the archfiends, the semi-godlike creatures, there were still probably about 8 to 10 devils of various types. Here, you only have 4. You have the pit fiends, you have black Abishai, you have green Abishai, and you have red Abishai. And that's it. So, a much, much smaller selection or differentiation. So they do not have like, and the other thing I don't think they have is like an index of them. No, they don't. They don't have an index of them either, which would have made more sense. So I don't think that there are not bone devils and such that I was kind of looking for. And so here we have it. So I'm going to talk about the Pit Fiend and do a comparison, right? So here we have the Pit Fiend. Climate and terrain is the 9 hells. They are very rare. They're solitary. They're any active cycle, activity cycle. They're carnivores. They're geniuses, right? So 17 to 18. Their alignment is lawful evil. Number of appearing is 1 to 4. Their armor class is -5. Their movement is 15 on foot and 24 flight. Their hit die is 13. Their THAC0 is 7, which means they need to roll a 7 or higher in order to hit AC 0. The number of attacks is 6 or 1. And the 6 gets a bit complicated. I'll address that a little bit. They have special attacks of fear, poison, tail constriction. Fear, poison, tail constriction. They regeneration. They have special defensive regeneration. I believe it's 2 hit points per round. They have a +3 or better weapon to hit because they have an 18-100 strength. They have magic resistance of a flat rate of 50%. They are large, 12 feet tall. They are fearless, so they have a morale that's cooked right into the books. And as I said earlier, I love the fact that they have a flat rate XP value. Tells you right in the Monstrous manual that they are valued at 57,500 XP. So if your party manages to defeat a pit fiend, they're going to, just from that one combat, 57,500 XP. So I am now going to switch to the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm sorry, the Monster Manual First Edition. And I'm going to double check to make sure that we did, in fact, and we did. So we did, in fact, you're seeing now Devil. And I'm going to compare the two. I couldn't do side by side for some reason. So here you see that they include here archdevils, and I'm not going to dwell on those. But you do have lesser devils, which they do not have in the Monstrous manual. So they've removed those. But you had bone, you had barbed, you have Aranes, horned, which are greater devils, but still not there. Ice devils, and lemurs, which are lesser devils. Here's the pit fiend now. So this is a greater devil. So let's start doing some comparison if we can. The AC is it's still rare. It's still number appearing 1 or possibly 1 to 3, so slightly lesser numbers. Its AC is -3 as opposed to -5. Its movement is not as fast. Same hit die. They talk about it being in lair. Here in first edition, they did not have that in second edition. Its number of attacks was only 2 as opposed to 6. Its damage on, its damage per attack is basically just either 5 to 8 or 7 to 12. It's much more diversified in second edition. Special defenses +2 or better weapons to hit. The other did not have that included here. Intelligence is still exceptional. It's still lawful evil. It's still 12 feet tall. Its psionic ability, they have its psionic ability here that it's talking about. And no, I have to go back up over here. There is no mention of its XP, which is, you have to go to the Dungeon Master's Guide to get the XP chart. So it's a much better improvement coming over to here. Now, the comparison between the two, they're much more powerful here in second edition than they are in first edition. So even if their damage, so their attacks, right? They get up to 6 attacks. It's 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 6, 1 to 6, 2 to 12, and then 2 to 8 is all of its potential attacks, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or the weapon. The constriction does an additional amount of damage beyond that as well. So it has far more number of attacks. Even though they do kind of lesser amounts, the overall, it being harder to hit and having some other general, so that some other general aspects of it, right? So here we go to the Pit Fiend here, and here's the combat stats in it. So it buffets with its wings for 1 to 4 points of damage. Its claws do 1d6 per successful attack. The bite of a Pit Fiend is a dreadful indeed, causing any creature bitten to take 2 to 12 points of damage and receive a lethal dose of poison. A saving throw versus poison is required, or the victim dies in 1 to 4 rounds. The bite also infects the victim with a disease. So on top of that, it also diseases them as well. It can attack with its tail every round, inflicting 2 to 8 points of damage per hit. The tail can also constrict the victim for 2 to 8 points of damage per round until the victim makes a successful strength check to break free. Pit fiends can also carry jagged toothed clubs, which inflict the 7 to 12 points of damage per hit. This replaces just one claw attack. Once per round, they can use the following spell-like powers available to all devil kind. They can detect magic, detect invisibility, fireball, hold person, improved invisibility, polymorph self, produce flame, pyrotechnics, so wall of fire. They can once per year cast a wish spell, and so on. So I mean, they are extremely powerful. And let's see if they, and that is a picture of the Pit Fiend. Okay, so now you can see the they're definitely look the same in many ways. The features are pretty much the same. However, I'm going to put this out there that the art is I find that the art is better in first edition than in second edition. And it's not really a slight at the artists of second edition. I just prefer AD&D first edition art. I think that they're, although this is as cool as this is, this particular one, let's see what they look like here. Abayashi are going to be, oh, they're actually not in this section, or they don't have them there. All right, the other thing I wanted to take a look at is I wanted to take a look at red dragons. Red dragon is of course the most iconic of all Dungeons and Dragons creatures, right? So let's take a look at the red dragon, and we'll do a quick. I mean, you could see all of the, interesting, like a broken one. I'm not familiar with that, so pretty cool. That's a bugbear. A boulet, I guess, bullywug. But I want to get to dragons. Come on. Sorry, the scrolling is taking a lot faster than... and when I do it this way, it goes too fast. Dragon general, dragons, black, chromatic. There's a red dragon. So, red dragon, chromatic, tells you its climate zones and everything. Going down, its base armor class is a -3. Its move is 9, so fairly slow. Its flight is 30, fairly quick. Base hit die is 15. All right, and then what they have here is they have a chart to show for each type of dragon. All right, they'll have their age category and how it affects their breath weapons and their spell effects and everything, and their total XP value. Right, so if you kill basically an ancient red dragon, you are facing a breath weapon of 24 D10 plus 12, which is pretty phenomenal. They have a magic resistance of 65%, and they're going to give you 24,000 experience points flat rate for killing them. So again, significantly more powerful than what you have in the first edition monster manual. So let's get out of dinosaurs here, and we'll go to red dragon. I'm into dragons now, and let's find red. Here it is. So here you have the red dragon, and it has an AC of -1, so a little bit easier to hit, a little bit slower flight speed. Hit dice are variable now, 9 to 11, so much lower than here, where its base hit die is 15. So much less powerful. Its attacks 1 to 8, 1 to 8, 3 to 30. Its attacks here 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 3 to 30, so still more powerful again. And its magic resistance, let's see if it has any special magic resistance is standard. So it doesn't even have this magic resistance as it gets older. It starts picking up magic resistance. So much more powerful in second edition than in first edition. So and I'm going to leave that there, here for now. I do want to eventually get down into, like I said, there's no contents here. I do eventually want to get to the appendices of this here, and so I'll do a second video just on this section. So appendix 1 through 3, I believe it was, and cover that there. So that will be the next video that I do on this series. So as you can see, there's considerable differences between the two. You can see that there's certainly an increase in power. Just looking at those two examples there, there's a lot that this does that I really like. An improvement over the first edition AD&D. One thing that this doesn't have, or at least I didn't notice that it has, and the table of contents was not present in, the table of contents isn't present in either of these, which is really quite bizarre, that there's no table of contents in the books themselves. So, so that's something that's just strange. There's no treasure chart in here that I can see just yet. Let's see. Nope, it's monster summoning. So there's no treasure chart that is in the second edition monster manuals as there were in first edition. So you do have to refer to the DMG in order to do that as well. Like I said, I'm more familiar with For Gold and Glory, which puts everything in one book. So, so really cool stuff here. I'm really enjoying this, first look through it. Doing that comparison, I think, is useful between the two so that you can see. And the monsters are definitely more powerful here in second edition than they were in first edition, which probably makes sense because the character classes are a little bit more powerful. They have more layers of ability that AD&D first edition characters did not have. And so with the increase in power that they have there, you obviously have to increase the power on the monster side as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you are more experienced with this than I am, please feel free to come into the comments section and point out where I might have misstated something, or ask me to take a look at something in particular so that I can either amend what I said on this video. I will do another video, as I said, for the Monstrous manual, and tie in some of your comments or questions or whatever, as well as any of your guidance as to, hey, take a look at this in the Monstrous manual, and talk a little bit about that as well. So I hope you like this video. Have a great day. Weekend's now behind us, so hopefully the work week goes fast for you. We get to the next weekend. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon, or at a convention. My next planned convention is not until April, so I have a long, long way to go to actually prepare for that. Start thinking about what games I might run, there. Um, I've often found that AD&D Second Edition is run at conventions, especially the conventions that I've been going to. That's where most of my play experience has come from. So AD&D Second Edition is still run at conventions, and so that's something that I think is valuable for you to take note of. That you can find places to go to play this, and there's still quite a good following of it. And I mean, technically speaking, the players that started their experience, their journey in this hobby with Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of them started with Second Edition, and so and they are at least 10 or 15 years younger than those of us that started with either OD&D or AD&D First Edition. So they have a good 10 to 15 years longevity over us, that started earlier. And so there's a lot of long going campaigns with this. And again, Dungeon Musings has live plays, so you can definitely check out his channel and see live plays for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, plus some other games that I play myself and run myself. So I'm really looking forward to digging into his channel and seeing what he has. He is certainly more of an expert on the topic of Second Edition AD&D than I am, and probably has more content than just about anybody I've come across so far for Second Edition. So I definitely direct you to take a look at his channel as well. So, as always, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Definitely leave your comments in there. And all of that helps generate the algorithms so that more people can discover this channel as well. And most of all, I like when your comments come in and ask me to take a look at things that I wasn't exactly in line for taking a look at, might not have been aware of them or whatnot. And so it does really provide me with the ability to then produce stuff that you want to see. So that's really important as well. So have a great day. Take care.